Hi everyone! Due to the overwhelming number of requests from viewers, part 2 of Excited for the Divorce Money, Then My Wife Heard My Thoughts officially begins here. This chapter continues directly from the moment Luna and Ethan return to the Liu family villa after leaving the company. Before the video starts, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. The car glided slowly into the private estate of the Lunas family. I noticed several unfamiliar cars parked in the driveway. It was clear they had guests. As soon as we stepped through the front door, a familiar voice drifted from the living room. Mom, Dad, this is the child Claire and I were planning to adopt. His name is Toby. Luna immediately realized that her eldest sister, Claire, and her brother-in-law, Mark, had arrived. Before I could even process the sudden mention of an adoption, I found myself quickening my pace. It was as if I had caught the scent of fresh scandal. Oh boy, here comes the drama. Inside, I was buzzing with excitement, like a spectator who couldn't wait for the opening curtain of a hit play. Luna glanced at my eager expression and felt utterly speechless. She probably thought I looked like someone who had zero regrets about the divorce and was only there for the entertainment. The moment we walked in, the fragile silence of the room shattered. Every eye turned toward us. The butler stepped forward to take our coats. When Mrs. Liu saw us, she practically bolted upright from the sofa, her eyes filled with wary tension. Mr. Liu tried to maintain his usual air of stoic authority, but I could see the unease flickering in his gaze. This morning, when I had been taken away, Mrs. Liu had asked Luna frantically, "What are we going to do?" But Luna had only replied coldly, "Mother, don't interfere this time." Mr. Liu had simply sighed, a silent agreement to let his daughter handle things. After all, I had supposedly caused a major incident this time. If it wasn't handled strictly, the rest of the family would never be satisfied. In reality, they hadn't wanted Claire and her family to visit today. However, Claire had called home in a panic, insisting she had urgent business, so they had no choice but to let them over. Drawing on my memory of how the old Ethan used to interact with them, I gave a curt, indifferent nod, maintaining a frosty demeanor. Luna didn't say much either, offering only a brief greeting to her sister's family. Mr. and Mrs. Liu felt it was too awkward to question us directly in front of everyone, so they decided to settle Claire's matters first. Just then, a shrill, biting voice cut through the room. "So, have the two idols of the Lunas house finally divorced? If you're separated, why on earth are you showing up here together?" The atmosphere turned icy in an instant. "Mom," Claire hurriedly spoke up to stop her mother-in-law, but her voice was weak and wavering. Her husband, Mark, remained silent, letting his mother ramble on without intervention. Luna knit her brows slightly, maintaining her icy composure. "We haven't divorced," Luna stated flatly. "Of course we returned together." Hearing this, Mr. and Mrs. Liu visibly exhaled, their faces lighting up with relief. However, Mark's mother refused to let it go, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "But hasn't the entire social circle been buzzing with rumors? They say he committed some kind of error?" Luna's expression darkened. Just as she was about to explain, I spoke up. "Since when did the Miller family join the upper crust of society to be privy to such rumors? The Millers only owned a small private hospital thanks to the Lunas backing. They were far from being a true elite dynasty." My words turned the mother-in-law's face a sickly shade of green, her mouth hanging open in silent rage. You are insulting the Miller family." I shrugged innocently, a smirk playing on my lips. "Why so sensitive in your old age? Where did I lie? How is that an insult?" In my head, I was scoffing. "I'm absolutely insulting you. You're just a weed pretending to be an eagle, acting like you're something special." Luna heard my internal tirade loud and clear. She decided to stay silent, simply pulling me down to sit beside her. As we sat, I noticed the bewildered expressions on Mr. and Mrs. Liu's faces. They looked dazed, as if they had heard me speak but hadn't actually seen my lips move. Luna's eyes flickered, glancing toward Claire, who was also staring at me in utter confusion. Meanwhile, the standoff between the mother-in-law and me continued. She was so furious that the wrinkles on her face bunched together. She let out a cold huff. Truly a child with no upbringing. The atmosphere among the Lunas plummeted. After all, they had raised me for several years. Just as Mrs. Liu was about to snap back, I cut in. Indeed, I was never taught how to lower myself just to fit in with certain people. I scanned her from head to toe, making no effort to hide the disgust on my face. Mark, who had been playing the silent observer, finally reached his breaking point. My comment about lowering oneself to fit in had clearly struck a nerve. He moved to support his mother, who looked like she was about to faint from rage, and glared at Claire with blatant irritation. Claire, caught in the middle, could only offer a weak plea. "Mom, please don't be angry. Ethan is still young, he didn't mean any harm." I almost burst out laughing. "I'm 24. Since when am I still young?" Mr. and Mrs. Liu couldn't take the tension anymore. Not wanting to make things harder for their eldest daughter, they stepped in to play peacemaker. Now, let's not bicker with Ethan. He's just in a bad mood today, and being a bit too blunt." With Mrs. Liu speaking up, the Millers had no choice but to swallow their pride, and the atmosphere settled into a fragile calm. Claire looked relieved for a moment, but she was quickly crushed by the disapproving glares of her husband and mother-in-law. It was painful to watch. They were clearly fuming because they felt Claire's family didn't respect them enough. Noticing her eldest sister's agonizing predicament, Luna glanced at the child sitting beside them, who was occupied with a Rubik's Cube. Recalling the spoilers I had mentally leaked earlier, she got straight to the point. "And who is this child?" Finally, the real business was on the table. Mark wiped the irritation from his face and spoke with feigned nonchalance. "His name is Toby. We are preparing to adopt him. He will be our son from now on." Toby opened his mouth to speak, but Luna cut him off before a sound could escape. "What exactly makes him so special that you two decided to adopt him so suddenly?" At that question, the mother-in-law's face froze. She gave a forced, brittle laugh. "It's just that the boy bears a striking resemblance to both my son and Claire. We felt it was a stroke of fate." Her words were like a dagger aimed at the heart. Mr. and Mrs. Liu leaned in, studying Toby's features. Indeed, the boy shared an uncanny resemblance with Mark and even some subtle traits with Claire. However, upon hearing this, Claire's face turned ghastly, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. Even little Toby lowered his head, looking utterly guilt-ridden. How hilarious, I thought. The child they want to adopt is actually his biological son. Claire can't conceive, so they're trying to force her to raise his illegitimate child from an affair. The sheer nerve of these people is thicker than a fortress wall. The entire Liu family looked as if they had been struck by lightning. They stared in disbelief at the trio sitting on the opposite sofa. Luna was equally stunned, her eyes darting to me as if demanding to know how I could possibly know such sordid details. Meanwhile, I was busy replaying the dramatic script in my head. Mark even demanded Claire hide the child's origins, insisting they must adopt him. He claimed that if the truth came out, the Lunas would blow it out of proportion and ruin the relationship between the two families. His excuse? "Don't make a scene, or my family won't have an heir." As if his family has a throne that needs inheriting? Give me a break. My internal monologue was becoming increasingly scathing. The Lunas were in total shock, their gazes fixed on Claire. She looked like a deflated balloon, her suppressed grievances finally bubbling over as she teetered on the edge of a breakdown. Seeing this, Luna fully grasped the tea I had been brewing. Her expression turned frostier than a winter gale as she immediately interrogated them. "Then who exactly are this child's biological parents? Have you investigated them thoroughly? Because if you haven't, I certainly will. If someone wants to become a member of my family, their origins must be crystal clear." That single sentence caused Mark and his mother's faces to pale instantly. Their reaction snapped Mr. and Mrs. Liu out of their stupor. "The child is mine." To everyone's shock, Mark admitted it directly. The confession was so bold that Mr. Liu slammed his hand onto the marble coffee table with such force it nearly sent the butler's tray flying. The butler stood there awkwardly, seemingly debating whether he should hand Mr. Liu something heavy to throw at Mark. "Regarding this child, I haven't wronged Claire," Mark stammered, his face pale but his voice desperate for composure. "He was born in secret by an ex-girlfriend of mine." The Lunas could hardly believe their ears. The audacity of his defense only added fuel to the fire. Fury and astonishment filled the room. I looked at Mark and found his behavior utterly surreal. The man didn't seem to possess even a shred of shame. His mother rushed to provide an explanation. "Please don't be angry. We only just discovered the existence of this child ourselves. You both know how important the union between our families is. Since Claire is unable to conceive, and there happens to be a Miller bloodline child wandering out there, we thought adopting him back wouldn't threaten Claire's position in our household at all." Mrs. Liu's face turned scarlet with rage. "Are you suggesting my daughter should be grateful for the opportunity to help your son and his ex-girlfriend raise their love child?" You certainly have high hopes, don't you? But Claire won't have the pressure of childbirth, yet she'll have a son ready to be hers. The mother-in-law continued, her tone so brazen it left Mrs. Liu speechless. Once the legal paperwork is done, he's no different from a biological child. The realization hit Mrs. Liu like a physical blow. Her daughter had been enduring such a massive injustice. It's our fault for raising her to be too obedient, she thought. She didn't know how to handle this, so her instinct was just to come home. At that thought, she immediately declared, "We do not consent." Mr. Liu backed her up with a sharp, decisive nod. Luna glanced at me, casually snacking while taking it all in, and rolled her eyes helplessly. I was eating heartily so I could have the energy to deal with the fallout later. While the room was as tense as a violin string, I was practically a one-man dinner theater audience. The mother-in-law's face was hideous to behold. Mark, who had always resented being under his in-law's thumb but lacked the courage to fight back, decided to target the weakest link. "Claire," he said, his voice dripping with hostility, "you didn't object to this before." His mother piled on the moral blackmail. "Do you really want to kick my only grandson out onto the street?" Finally, Mr. Liu reached his boiling point. "Claire, no matter what you decide, we stand behind you forever. No one is allowed to bully you." The miller's expression soured further. Claire looked down at Toby. Despite the boy being well-behaved, the mere thought of his origin made her skin crawl. "Claire," Mark snapped, his tone a blatant threat. Terrified, Claire turned to us with a pleading gaze. I don't know. Mom, Dad, what does everyone think?" Disappointment washed over her parents. Claire had always been kind-hearted, but since her marriage, she had become spineless and utterly lacking in conviction. Luna set her chopsticks down and exhaled a heavy sigh, realizing she would have to step in and take charge for her sister. She was determined not to let that child stay. Right at that moment, my inner thoughts flared up again. What is there even to think about? These people are literally walking all over you, and you're still not divorcing? What are you waiting for, a New Year's miracle? The three Lunas felt their hearts skip a beat at this blunt, internal truth bomb. Claire's face turned deathly pale. Her first instinct, born of ingrained habit, was to recoil at the very mention of the word divorce. Even though the thought of divorce had never truly crossed her mind, a stubborn streak in her bones made her refuse to let go so easily. Luna broke the silence, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "The appearance of this child is proof that everything back then was a mistake. I suggest an immediate divorce." Mark and his mother stared at Luna in shock, while Claire murmured weakly, This technically isn't Mark's fault." That single sentence made the three Lunas so furious they wanted to scream in frustration. I nearly spat out my mouthful of rice. Claire hung her head, looking utterly helpless. Mark let out a mocking sneer. "Exactly. Besides, it's not even clear who wronged whom in this marriage." His arrogance only fueled the Luna's rage, while Claire's face drained of color, as if she had been struck so hard she couldn't speak. My inner thoughts began to surge like a flood. Claire is the eldest daughter of the Lunas family. How did she end up living such a miserable life after marriage? Mark has a love child and still dares to act this smug. It's suspicious as hell. I decided to dig deeper into the plot of this original story. As it turned out, Mark and Claire had been senior and junior in school. After a bad breakup, Mark had drowned his sorrows in alcohol and ended up in bed with Claire. The next morning, his ex-girlfriend, Molly, saw them together and left in heartbreak. Because of this, Mark held a deep grudge against Claire, blaming her for destroying his true love with Molly. In the room, the Lunas fell silent, which only made Mark and his mother more emboldened. Mark turned to Claire with a cold, arrogant tone. "Think long and hard about your choice." This fake gesture of giving her the power to choose only made Claire feel more resigned. Just as she was about to open her mouth, my mental commentary hit again. Mark is a master of gaslighting and leeching off others. I've never seen a man this shameless. My continuous stream of mental complaints made Claire uncomfortable. She wanted to argue, but didn't know where to start. I kept going. Using being drunk as an excuse for the hookup is the oldest trick in the book. As a man, I know exactly how it works. If you're truly wasted to the point of being unconscious, you can't actually perform. Claiming it was an accident or a blackout is a total lie. He just wanted to indulge himself without taking responsibility. Luna and her parents felt like they'd been hit by a bolt of lightning, while Claire stood frozen, her face as white as a sheet. She remembered that night. When a drunken Mark had stumbled toward her, she had tried to resist, but he had whispered, "I just want to hold you. I'm so sad." Those words had made her heart soften, leading her to believe he actually had feelings for her. Instead, when he woke up, he told her she was the one who initiated it. Because of that lie, Claire believed the fault was hers and had accepted all his mistreatment. But my mental rant wasn't over. Mark even had the nerve to tell Claire she ruined his life with Molly, yet he's the one using a child to chain her to him. What an absolute joke, I thought, the internal monologue running like a live wire through the room. Back then, he couldn't compete with his rivals, his career was stalling, and his mother was crunching the numbers. He chose to marry Claire because it was the smartest move for his wallet. If he truly loved Molly, he would have chased after her years ago. The lunatic never held a gun to his head. And if he's so miserable, why hasn't he divorced her after all these years of having no children? To put it bluntly, he doesn't want to lose the lunatic family's resources. He wants to keep living the high life while acting like some martyr for justice. It's pathetic. The lunatic family members felt a deep sense of agreement. They remembered how Mark had been the one to initiate the marriage proposal. They had thought he was a man of responsibility. They never suspected he spent his private hours nursing a grudge against Claire and the very family that funded his lifestyle. Claire stared at Mark, her eyes wide with shock. He had always played the part of the noble, self-made man who didn't need the lunatic's help. The truth being unmasked before her was shattering her entire reality. She couldn't help but wonder, was any of this actually my fault? Her parents watched her in silence, feeling utterly helpless. Luna had always felt Mark was a bottom feeder, but she had stayed out of it because her sister seemed to love him. While they weren't exactly a power couple, she had assumed Mark at least treated Claire with basic decency. She had no idea how deep the rot actually went. Having finished this serving of drama, I lost my appetite entirely. I started wondering if I could find a way to break this toxic bond for good. Even if I couldn't explicitly reveal the secrets of the plot, I wanted to sabotage this disastrous marriage. Luna's face hardened as she spoke with icy authority. "Claire, the family stance remains unchanged. We want you to divorce him. If you don't, our family cannot bear the shame. From this moment on, we will sever all ties, business and personal, with the Miller family." It was a trap, a calculated move to see if Mark's love for the marriage survived without the lunatic family's bank account. Mark's mother panicked, spinning around to look at Claire's parents. Mr. Liu spoke firmly. "Luna is the head of the lunatic estate now. Whatever she decides is the law of this house." Mark's face shifted through a dozen shades of red and purple, the humiliation burning in his eyes as if he were the victim. Mrs. Liu, her face dark with anger, stepped forward and pulled Claire toward her. "Divorce him," she snapped at Mark's mother. "Then your son can marry whoever he wants and have as many children as he likes. No one will stop him. Why are you so desperate to stay married to us now?" Mark's mother frantically grabbed her son's arm. Mark knit his brows, about to speak, when Luna let out a cold, mocking laugh. "If you're worried about your precious reputation, don't be. When you divorce, we'll simply tell the public that the Lunas have no room for illegitimate children. It won't hurt your honor at all. Over the years, our family has given you more than enough help. Don't you dare suggest my sister owes you anything." Mark's face turned a sickly shade of green. He turned his chilling gaze toward Claire and asked sharply, "Claire, is this what you think too?" Mark demanded. Usually, the moment Mark showed even a hint of displeasure, Claire would rush to appease him. But this time, she remained silent. Seeing this, Mark's mother shrieked, "You can't even give him a child. Who else would ever want you?" Mr. Liu replied coldly, "She is the eldest daughter of the Lunas family. There is no shortage of men who would be honored to marry her." Mrs. Liu added, "If she wants children, she can adopt an orphan. All that matters is my daughter's happiness." Meanwhile, my mind was racing. Is infertility ever just one person's fault? Maybe Mark's genes are the problem. If she changed partners, who's to say she couldn't have as many kids as she wanted? I dug deeper into the data in my head and discovered that while Claire had some health issues making conception difficult, it wasn't impossible. The real issue was Mark. The guy only comes home a few days a month. They barely spend any time together as a couple throughout the year. With the odds already low, how on earth is she supposed to get pregnant? The lunatic family stared at Claire in stunned silence. Her face flushed deep red.
"How does he know about that?"
She wondered, mortified. She had always been too shy to bring it up and simply assumed her own body was the problem. The Lunas were seething. How did Mark have the nerve to blame Claire for being childless when he wasn't even putting in the effort? While this wasn't an easy topic to confront publicly, it solidified everyone's resolve. This marriage had to end. I felt a surge of indignation. But if he's not at home, where the hell is he? The system, in my mind, provided the answer instantly. The 18th floor of the apartment complex next to the hospital. For the past 9 years, Mark and Molly had been living together as husband and wife. The air in the room turned electric with tension. Claire looked as if she were about to faint. Mrs. Liu caught her, her face contorted with grief. Mr. Liu's veins were bulging at his temples. He looked like a deposed king watching a scavenger invade his territory. Luna lowered her head, quietly issuing a command on her phone. The Millers, however, still didn't realize the magnitude of the storm they were in. Mark said coldly, "Are you really going to make this much of a scene over a small matter?" Claire looked at him with hollow, tear-filled eyes. Why? She had always believed he married her out of a sense of duty, never imagining that he and Molly had never actually broken up and that he had shifted all the guilt onto her. Why what? Mark snapped. Fine, if you really can't accept the boy, I'll send him away tomorrow. He acted as if he were granting her a great mercy, but his generosity only made Claire want to vomit. The image of the brilliant senior she had once adored finally crumbled, leaving behind only a repulsive facade. I couldn't help but interject. Send the child away? You seem to know exactly where the mother is, then. Still tangled up with her, are you? I think we need to investigate whether you and Molly are still in contact. You expect Claire to wear a green hat and raise your loved child too. Mark's pupils constricted. His voice lost its steady edge. You dare slander me? My mother was right. You really have no upbringing. Luna's voice dropped to a lethal sub-zero. Shut up. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't explain how they knew the truth, the Ainsworths would have exposed this hypocritical scumbag on the spot after hearing my thoughts. I simply turned toward the boy and said, "Just look at your father's face. He can't even hide the truth while trying to deny it." Mark's mother, desperate to maintain the lie, tried to coach the boy. "Tell us, have you lived with your father before? Good children don't tell lies." Finally, the boy couldn't take the pressure anymore. He grabbed Mark's hand and cried out, "Daddy, let's just go home. Mommy is waiting." In a panicked rage, Mark swung his hand and slapped the child across the face. The boy tumbled to the floor, a bright red handprint blooming on his cheek. The room descended into chaos. Startled, I rushed forward and pulled the child toward me as he sobbed uncontrollably. Claire, her heart softening despite the circumstances, gathered the boy into her arms and gently patted his back. Finding a sudden spark of courage, the boy choked out, "Mommy and Daddy always live together. They only separate sometimes. They told me I was born outside and that they had to trick you into adopting me so I could be public. I know it was wrong. I'm sorry." The silence that followed was so heavy you could hear a pin drop. The boy clung to Claire's shirt, whispering apologies through his tears. Claire finally broke down, her sobs echoing through the living room. Mark's mother grabbed her son's arm, her face a mask of confusion and horror. "Son, is this actually true?" Mark's face was unrecognizable with fury, yet he remained stubborn. "Nonsense. I can't believe this kid is lying to frame me. He just wants me to be with his mother, so he's making things up." "Claire, do you really suspect me?" Little Toby looked at his father with wide, disbelieving eyes, shocked by the man's blatant lies. If it weren't for my tracking skills, the Lunas family might have been deceived by Mark's performance. But now, he looked like nothing more than a dancing clown. Mark, of course, wouldn't admit defeat easily. In his eyes, everything was still just my speculation. He had been meticulously careful for 9 years, never leaving a trace. He figured even if the family suspected something, they had no proof. Besides, how much weight does the word of a child carry? Moreover, Molly was prepared to flee the country. Even if the Lunas suspected her, they wouldn't be able to find her. Suddenly, Claire stood up. She grabbed the heavy crystal fruit tray from the table and hurled it directly at Mark. There was a sickening thud as the tray connected. Mark's forehead split open instantly, blood beginning to seep out. Fruit and shattered glass rained down on him, and his glasses were sent flying across the room. He stared in dazed shock at the woman who had always been gentle, now suddenly possessed by a primal rage. Embarrassed and livid, Mark roared, "Claire, have you gone insane?" "Mark, I have never wronged you, but you have betrayed me. You and Molly treated me like a complete fool. Claire screamed through her tears. The years of suppressed grievances erupted like a broken dam, and for the first time, she felt wide awake. Don't you dare slander me. Mark started, but Luna didn't let him finish. She slammed her phone onto the marble table. A video call was already active. On the screen, Molly was being held down in a chair by two suited men. Let me go. Who are you people? You're trespassing. Molly screamed through the screen. Mommy. Toby shrieked in terror, while Mark's face drained of every last drop of color. The audio from the phone continued, professional and cold. Director Luna, we've found everything. Here are the employment records and the daily activity logs for Mr. Miller. We also have photos. This is clearly where the three of them lived as a family. Mark stood there, paralyzed. Suddenly, a whip cracked through the air, lashing across his face. A scream of agony tore from his throat as the snap, snap, snap of the leather continued relentlessly. It was a riding crop the butler had handed to Mr. Liu. You've been having an affair for years, and you had the audacity to make my daughter raise your love child? Mr. Liu was beyond fury. He looked ready to kill. Mark was whipped to the floor, cowering. Faced with the raw rage of the Liu patriarch, he seemed to lose his mind, forgetting even to try and run. Mark's mother broke down, wailing and pleading for her son. Stop hitting him. Please have mercy on him. Toby also lunged forward, shielding Mark. Don't hit my daddy. I beg you, please stop. Seeing the child standing in the path of the whip, Mr. Liu finally lowered his hand, his chest heaving. Divorce? Mark, I want a divorce. Claire's heart-wrenching scream echoed through the hall. On the other end of the phone, Luna didn't hesitate. She issued a cold, sharp command. Gather every single piece of evidence regarding Mark Miller's infidelity. Prepare the filing immediately. Those words were a death sentence. Under the law, with this level of evidence, Mark would be kicked out with absolutely nothing to his name. 9 years of social climbing were wiped out in a heartbeat. You can't do this to me, Mark howled. Claire's eyes burned with a newfound fire. Mark, you brought every bit of this on yourself. How dare you blame me now? Fine. It's true. Molly and I are together. Mark snapped, his logic twisting into something deranged. But I gave you the status of being my wife, didn't I? What more do you want? This delusional statement left the entire Lunas family speechless with rage. Did I beg you for that status? Claire asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Claire, your family is too powerful. You pressured me invisibly. Mark ranted. If I hadn't married you, would I even have a foothold in the medical community? Claire wept, but this time it was out of pure, unadulterated anger. Mark Miller, you are a hypocrite so disgusting it makes me sick. Claire had finally woken up. Indeed, Mark was nothing more than a parasite biting the hand that fed him. Ingrate, I cursed him silently in my mind. Complete and utter trash. Hearing these words, Claire suddenly threw her head back with newfound strength, her eyes burning with hatred as she glared at Mark. You are nothing but a pathetic parasite, she spat. It was the nickname Mark loathed above all else. What did you just say? Mark roared. I said you're a parasite. You and your mistress have lived like leeches, completely devoid of shame. Claire, you're the despicable one. Mark snarled back. Who are you talking to? Molly shrieked from the other end of the line, her voice filled with venom. You're the one who stole my man. You robbed me of everything. You're the shameless one here. Molly continued her tirade, claiming she could never forget the disgusting sight of her boyfriend in bed with Claire. She claimed she had intended to return for Mark but was told he was being forced into marriage, right up until the moment she realized she was pregnant. Then why didn't you come back all these years? Claire countered, her rebuttal sharp as a razor. Your man refused to divorce because he was obsessed with power. You're nothing but a kept mistress. What right do you have to act superior? You claim we oppressed him? If he didn't marry me, he would have remained a nobody. He chose to stay with me for the status, while keeping you in the shadows to satisfy his ego. That's not love, Molly. That's his revenge on both of us. Listening to this, I couldn't help but feel a surge of sarcasm. Mark really is a master of playing both sides. Molly has been played just as badly as Claire. Claire let out a cold, hollow laugh. I was a fool, Molly, but so are you. Mark, you know damn well whether my family was ever a threat to you back then. Stop pretending to be the victim. Stop trying to hold the moral high ground just to suppress me. You clung to the Lunas family for your future and traded away your true love for a paycheck. Don't you dare dump your guilt on my head. I'm done carrying it for you. Claire's words trampled over Mark's pride, leaving his face contorted in a mask of ugly desperation. Molly frantically chimed in. Stop slandering him. Mark would never. Fine, Claire interrupted with a chilling smile. If that's how you want to play it, the Lunas family will see this through to the bitter end. After the divorce, I'll show you exactly what threats and oppressing others really look like. Claire's declaration made Mark stammer in disbelief. Claire, how did you become like this? His sheer panic was the only proof needed that her words had hit their mark. Claire had finally woken up to his game. Seeing the tides turn, Mark's mother immediately grabbed Claire's hand. Claire, I'll never accept that other woman. Mark was just being foolish. Give him one more chance. I'm begging you. Look at him. He's been beaten enough. Mrs. Liu stepped in as a physical barrier. Mark's mother, desperate, could only grab Mark and try to force him to apologize. Promise her. Apologize now. Do you want to see the Miller family collapse? Forced nearly to his knees, the panic in Mark's eyes intensified. Finally, he blurted out, I won't divorce. Claire, I was wrong. I was just resentful and bitter, but I truly do care about you. On the phone screen, Molly let out a manic shriek. Mark, is everything Claire said true? Have you been lying to me too? Shut up. Mark roared back. Luna let out a cold laugh. The evidence of your infidelity is undeniable, Mark. You no longer have a choice. Stop the theatrics. Mark looked at Claire, hoping for a flicker of the old devotion, but he found only a gaze full of pure revulsion. He realized then that the situation was beyond salvation. Suddenly, Molly lost all control. Mark, don't forget the baby. Mark screamed in terror. I told you to shut your mouth. Do you want to lose the baby? Do you want to die? That single outburst made the entire Lunas family recoil in disgust. Even little Toby stood frozen, hearing about a new sibling for the first time. Mark grabbed his mother and Toby, his posture shifting abruptly. I admit it. I wronged Claire. I agree to the divorce. Distribute the assets however you want. Just don't involve anyone else. He's folding too fast, I thought. Is he running away because he's afraid of getting another beating? I felt uneasy about how quickly Mark had changed his tune. I expected someone as arrogant as him to put up a bigger fight. The Lunas, however, didn't overthink it. They simply wanted the three Millers out of their sight. They couldn't stand sharing the same air for another second. As the three of them stumbled toward the exit, Toby stole one last glance back at us. Claire, still caught in her grief, happened to look up and meet his eyes. For a split second, an indescribable feeling washed over her, an intuitive pull toward the boy's strange behavior. Suddenly, Mark jerked Toby's arm with violent force. The boy stumbled forward, nearly falling. When he saw the savage expression on Mark's face, his heart nearly stopped from fear. Mark gritted his teeth, his back turned to us. A sinister, twisted smirk spread across his lips. You dare humiliate me? He thought, his pulse racing with a warped excitement. You dare humiliate the entire Miller name? The Lunas. I'll make every last one of you regret this. Watching the Miller family's retreating figures, I couldn't help but think, if they hadn't been so cruel to others, they wouldn't be swallowing such a bitter pill now. Justice has eyes, I suppose. But it's a shame for that boy. He's probably going to get beaten the moment they get home. A rotten tree can't hide its spoiled fruit for long. Still, it's bizarre. Why would they want their own child to treat his enemy as a mother? What on earth were they thinking? Luna heard my internal rambling and shot me a look filled with complex emotions. She thought the answer was obvious. Why else? To ensure the child was eligible to inherit both the Lunas and Miller fortunes. While Luna was still lost in thought, I suddenly moved like an arrow shot from a bow, lunging toward the trio as they reached the door. I grabbed Toby's arm, yanked him back, and delivered a powerful kick to Mark's back. He and his mother went sprawling onto the ground, their pathetic shrieks echoing throughout the entire estate. At that exact moment, the Lunas family heard a roar of panic in my head. System. Are you insane? You show me the drama but hide the biggest plot twist until the last second. This almost turned into a disaster. I had just received a system alert about Mark's real plan. It turned out he had swapped the babies years ago. Toby was actually Claire's biological son. The great hall of the Lunas estate went deathly silent. No one could breathe. Hearing this, Claire's mind went blank. She couldn't wrap her head around the idea that her son was alive, that he had been raised by Mark and his mistress all along instead of dying at birth. Toby was terrified seeing his father and grandmother on the floor. He tried to rush to them, but Luna stepped in and gripped his hand firmly. She stared intensely at the boy's young face, memories of Claire's sudden premature labor years ago flooding back, how they had been shown a stillborn child. A chilling realization took hold. Everything had been manipulated. I stood my ground, staring at a bloodied and livid Mark. He opened his mouth to scream in rage, but when he saw Toby being held behind me by Luna and noticed the murderous glares of the rest of the Lunas family, the blood in his veins turned to ice. I scrambled for an excuse to justify my outburst. I just think Toby looks too much like an Lunas. He doesn't look a thing like that woman you're keeping. Mark panicked, his voice trembling. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? But I remained stubborn, sticking to my hunch to prevent him from taking the innocent child away. I turned to Luna for backup. Honey, don't you think he looks just like Claire? Luna replied with eerie calm. Yes, he looks exactly like my sister. Her unwavering gaze and unconditional trust gave me a momentary sense of relief. Luna turned her cold eyes back to Mark. We have serious doubts about this child's identity. We will be conducting a DNA test immediately. Mark was paralyzed with shock. Moments ago, he had been fantasizing about how to destroy the Lunas in the future. Now, the tables had turned so violently he was caught completely off guard. Are you all crazy? Mark shrieked, his voice cracking. Toby is my son with Molly. He has nothing to do with Claire. Only then did the weight of reality hit him. If the truth came out, he wouldn't just be losing a fortune. He would be facing a life sentence for kidnapping and fraud. Facing Luna's icy glare, Mark knew that no matter how much he tried to justify himself, he couldn't change her mind. His fate was sealed. His silence in that moment unintentionally confirmed that every horrific detail was true. Toby was still young. He seemed to grasp fragments of the truth, but he couldn't fully comprehend the magnitude of the betrayal. Instinctively, he tried to pull away from Luna to go to his father. Even though Mark had always been cold and Molly had never treated him well, they were still the only parents he knew. Suddenly, a pair of warm arms and the sound of raspy, broken sobs rushed toward him. Toby looked up to see Claire. She gripped his shoulders, her eyes wide with shock and brimming with tears, straining to memorize every inch of his face. Her hands trembled as she gently touched his cheek, her pain too deep for words. Then, overwhelmed by the shock, she collapsed on the spot. Toby panicked, trying to catch her. Mrs. Liu rushed over as well, pulling Toby into a tight embrace. You look just like them, she wept. You are my grandson. Finally, she saw it clearly. The boy was the spitting image of Claire and her brother, Leo, when they were children. Mr. Liu was shaking with a fury so intense it vibrated through his entire body. He marched over to Mark, dragged him upright, and had the butler restrain him. Dawn was breaking. Half an hour later, Luna called for an ambulance. Under the cover of early morning, the Lunas family traveled to a different private hospital, one they owned. Molly was brought there by force. It was only then that she saw Mark, battered with multiple fractures and drifting in and out of consciousness, and Toby, who was now being shielded by the entire Lunas family. The results of the expedited DNA test came back quickly. Holding the report, Claire clutched Toby to her chest and wept as if she were draining every tear she would ever have in her lifetime. Toby stared blankly at Molly, who looked disheveled and wretched. He opened his mouth to speak, but the word "mommy" died in his throat. He could only manage a broken "why." Molly snapped, her logic completely shattered. She shrieked with venom. This is the debt you and your mother owe me. You little brat, I should have killed you the moment you were born to trade your life for my son's. Toby finally broke down, his world crumbling as the only love he had ever known was revealed to be a lie. The tragedy was so gut-wrenching that I couldn't stay calm. I had to dig into the truth about Molly. It turned out that after giving birth to a stillborn child years ago, Molly had blamed Claire for her misfortune. When Claire's own son was born, Molly convinced Mark to swap the babies as compensation. Mark, driven by a pathetic sense of wounded pride, had agreed. Because Toby was the child of her rival, Molly could never bring herself to be kind to him. As a result, Toby had grown up under their roof frail, sensitive, and deeply insecure. Once Molly became pregnant again, she and Mark wanted to pour all their love into the new baby. Viewing Toby as a redundant burden, they devised their cruel plan. Before the Lunas tracked her down, Molly had even fantasized about raising her own child while watching Toby stay by her side forever, mocking Claire for her inability to recognize her own flesh and blood. Two sharp slaps rang out as Mrs. Liu, losing all composure, struck Molly across the face, leaving her cheeks swollen and her mouth bleeding. The frantic Molly cowered the moment she met Mr. Liu's icy gaze. She stammered, I'm pregnant. You can't hurt me." Luna stepped forward, her voice chillingly calm. "We won't touch your child. The Lunas are law-abiding citizens. However, you will pay a legal price for everything you have done." That night, Mr. Liu officially renamed Toby to Julian on the spot, and together with Claire, they brought the boy home. By the time they arrived at the estate, Julian was drifting off to sleep. After all, he was still just a growing child exhausted by trauma. Claire refused to leave her son's side for even a second. Her parents watched over him, with eyes full of tenderness. Finally, Luna appeared. "Where is Ethan?" Mrs. Liu asked. "He went back to his room to rest," Luna replied. The family gathered around the soundly sleeping Julian, speaking in hushed tones about the day's earth-shattering events. Mr. Liu spoke first. "Is it true? Can we actually hear Ethan's thoughts?" Luna summarized what had happened at the office earlier that day. "It seems only a few of us are able to hear him right now. It works like normal speech. If he's too far away, we can't hear anything." Claire chimed in. "If it weren't for him revealing the truth today, Julian and I might never have recognized each other. Just thinking about it is terrifying." "I suspect he has recently acquired some kind of supernatural ability," Luna continued. "The fact that we can hear him is likely a side effect. I suggest we keep things as they are for now, and don't let him know we can hear him." Claire sighed in admiration. "Ethan feels so different lately. I remember when I first got married, and he was brought into the Lunas home. He could always sense how lonely I was. Later, I heard Mom complaining that he and Luna were like a couple constantly at odds." Mrs. Liu reminisced. "Actually, Ethan was always that mischievous as a young boy. But after his parents passed away and his relatives made life difficult for him, his personality changed drastically. Now, he seems to be back to his old self." Mr. Liu patted Luna's shoulder. "In short, Ethan didn't just help you solve your business crisis. He saved your sister and your nephew. You should treat him well. He's a man who's tough on the outside but soft on the inside," Mrs. Liu added. "He's truly a kind soul. You should be more patient with him." Luna's mother gave one last reminder. "After all, you've already agreed to stay married. Don't let him end up living a lonely life like Claire did. The whole family hopes you will cherish him and work on truly improving your relationship as husband and wife. If it really doesn't work out, at least don't let it end in resentment and a bitter separation." Luna pondered for a moment before saying, "I'll give him money." The other three members of the Lunas family fell silent, thinking to themselves that Luna's emotional intelligence was truly rock bottom. Luna continued, "He likes money. Earlier today, when I transferred funds to him, he was very happy." Then she suddenly knit her brows. "But he doesn't know how to manage it. I'll help him invest it instead." Though the family didn't quite follow her logic, they were pleased because, in their eyes, Luna was finally willing to invest time and effort into me. However, Luna's actual internal thought was, "If we divorce, that money won't escape my grasp. And if we stay married, she certainly can't let her husband use that capital to go out and find other women." Shortly after, Luna decided to come find me to discuss the investment. Before she could even knock, she heard my startled exclamation from inside the room. "Oh my God. Mr. Liu, Mrs. Liu, even Claire, why is everyone sending me money? It must be a thank you for accidentally exposing the truth. They really are good people." Counting the previous amount, my total savings is now 1 million. I made 1 million in a single day. Even if I divorce Luna and leave with nothing later, I won't have to worry. Lowly mature ladies, slim waists, hee. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I saw Luna standing there, looking at me with a rather peculiar expression. My heart skipped a beat as I wondered what she wanted. Is she here to give me more thank you money? Luna got straight to the point. "Hand over all the money you have to me." I froze for a second. She continued, "I'll help you invest it. The money will generate interest, and I guarantee you won't lose a cent." I was surprised. "Really?" Luna nodded. "Think it over, then come find me." With that, she turned and headed back to her room. Even though my only goal after being reborn was to live a life of leisure, I understood the importance of financial management. The more I thought about Luna's offer, the more interested I became. As a successful young entrepreneur, she was undoubtedly much better at investing than I was. Having made up my mind, I immediately ran over and knocked on her door. I had to knock for a long while before the door finally opened. Luna was wearing a bathrobe, her hair still damp, a sight that made my heart race. She looked at me with a hint of suspicion, while I was busy daydreaming about her A-line waist. This bathrobe is impressively big and white. Hearing my inner thoughts, Luna's face flushed slightly. She pulled her robe tighter and said calmly, "I just showered, that's why it took me so long to answer." I blurted out, "No problem," while screaming internally, "Jackpot." Perfect timing. I tried my best to tear my eyes away from her looks. Just as I was about to transfer the funds, Luna's lips twitched. She asked, "Have you thought it through?" At that moment, the entire Lunas family was also listening tensely outside the door. I gave a slight nod and said, "I have 1 million here. Help me invest it." The Lunas exchanged glances, surprised that I actually had such a significant sum of money. Luna nodded, but I felt the need to double-check. "Are you absolutely sure there won't be any losses? Every investment has risks." She replied with total seriousness, "If there are losses, they're on me. I will personally guarantee that your principal remains untouched." I was half surprised and half skeptical, but I figured if she was willing to go that far, I shouldn't overthink it. I added, "All right, I'll transfer it later, but I'm only investing 900,000. Luna looked slightly confused, but before she could speak, I explained, "I'm keeping 100,000 as an emergency fund. By the way, is there an option for monthly dividends? If I have a fixed monthly income, I can live a much more relaxed life." Luna knit her brows slightly. "If you need money, you can just swipe your card." I laughed. "I know that, but I want to feel the joy of receiving monthly profits." "Is that not allowed?" A flicker of something bright crossed Luna's eyes. Perhaps influenced by my internal thoughts, her voice softened.
"Fine.
I understand. Also, the final payment for your last project has been processed. It should hit your account tomorrow. It's about 100,000. "Really?" I gasped. "I'm just a background player. How is my income that high?" "It's a bit higher than usual this time," Luna replied nonchalantly. I trusted her completely, my head already spinning with visions of a wealthy future. Meanwhile, the group eavesdropping outside the door looked at each other, feeling a wave of pity for me. They assumed I had all these petty worries about money because I lacked a sense of security. A moment later, Luna felt a sudden chill down her spine and said, "In the future, if you have extra cash, you can keep giving it to me. I'll help you with long-term investments." I muttered to myself internally, aside from the lack of a marital life, Luna really is perfect. The moment that thought flashed through my mind, my face turned bright red. Obviously, Luna heard it too. Her face instantly flushed, and even the tips of her ears turned hot. I chuckled inwardly, and the eavesdropping squad couldn't help but burst into quiet laughter. In the midst of that awkward atmosphere, Luna suddenly pulled me into the room. Scanning the guest list for an upcoming party, I felt a pang of frustration because I only knew the names but couldn't remember the faces. If I could recognize them, I might be able to dig up some juicy scandals. The Lunas, sitting on the sofa discussing the list, were immediately intrigued. After all, who could resist the lure of a good rumor? Lately, there had been no shortage of interesting things happening around me. They had even found out that the head butler had a secret crush on the head maid and were now secretly playing matchmaker. "Will Leo make it back in time?" Mr. Liu asked. "Didn't he say he was filming in a remote area with no signal?" Leo was the third child of the Ainsworth family and a top-tier superstar in the entertainment industry. "He just contacted me," Luna answered. "He said he'll definitely be back. Apparently, he has something very important to discuss." The Lunas family fell into a heavy silence, their expressions becoming noticeably strained. Seeing this, my curiosity flared, and I couldn't help but switch into full gossip mode. "Wait, so Leo wants to swap his fiancée? He was originally betrothed to the eldest daughter of the Sherwood family, but he's always had a crush on the second daughter. The eldest has a terrible reputation, while the younger one is praised by everyone who meets her." The Lunas weren't exactly surprised by this. Leo had made his feelings crystal clear for a long time. They didn't oppose the idea of free love, but they worried that Leo's hot-headed temperament would make the situation awkward. If he truly wanted to change the engagement, they decided to wait for him to return so the whole family could find a proper solution. Suddenly, I let out a mental sigh. Poor Leo, he almost died when he was a kid. It was actually the eldest Sherwood sister who saved his life, yet here he is, falling for the younger sister instead. The Lunas were stunned. Wait, wasn't it the second sister who saved him?